No one expected the plague to spread beyond the outer rings, but it did. It moved silently through trade ships, invisible through scanners, slipping into the cities of highborn worlds. First came the fever, then the hallucinations, then death. Entire colonies fell in days before anyone could even name it. The Galactic Council declared a universal quarantine. But by then, the infection had touched the Empress's inner court. Even the royal scientists were helpless. Labs were silent. Temples cried. Hope fell like the dead. The Empress, Yllari of the Shimmering Crown, stood in her chambers and felt the weight of 1 billion prayers she could not answer. Humanity had been silent for nearly 200 cycles. Their species was barred from the central systems after the last war, but their biology had survived things even worse than this. Whispers emerged in panic-stricken corners of the council. Old records were pulled. Desperate leaders looked again at the one race they had abandoned. One human doctor, a war medic named Elias Rook, had been living on a forgotten moon, tending to injured miners. No one cared about him until a courier ship landed at his doorstep, carrying an infected noble child. The crew died within hours. The child didn't. Elias worked for 3 nights non-stop, and the girl woke up asking for food. When the news reached the throne world, the Empress's advisors begged her to deny it. They claimed it was a trick, a lie, a viral mutation, not a cure. But Yllari saw the footage. She saw the child speak. She saw the human, scarred and weary, holding the child's hand like it was nothing new to him. She gave her order. Not a discussion, not a vote. She wanted the human brought to her. Her throne room, her court, her empire, all would kneel if he held the cure. Her command echoed across the galaxy with no explanation, just one name and one purpose: bring Elias. Rook alive. The soldiers who came for him didn't expect resistance, but Elias didn't fight. He only asked why. When they told him the Empress wanted to speak with him, he nodded once and said he'd pack his bag. On the flight through the stars, he said little, but his eyes were always watching, like a soldier checking every angle for danger. When they landed on the golden skyplate of the royal planet, the air shimmered with power. Her guards wore armor made from starlight and bone. Her palace towered over the city like a silent mountain. And inside, the Empress waited, not on her throne, but standing alone. Beside the window where the stars were visible, Elias entered. Without bowing, he stopped a few feet from her and looked at her face like it was just another patient. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen, glowing with veins of blue energy, her skin like a storm trapped inside crystal. But his voice remained steady when he spoke. I'm not here for politics, he said. If you're sick, I can try to help. If not, let me leave. Her eyes, violet and burning, locked with his. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, she spoke softly, with centuries of weight behind her words. I am the mother of worlds, the voice of storms, the hand of judgment. But today, I am just a woman whose people are dying. Will you help us, Elias Rook? His hand twitched slightly at her tone. He nodded once. That was all she needed. They gave him a wing of the palace. Untouched by servants, machines were delivered. Blood samples, data chips, scrolls of ancient medicine. He didn't rest. For 72 hours he tested and filtered and whispered to himself in human curses. The Empress watched him through cameras, saying nothing to the court. On the 4th night, he walked into the royal hall with a single vial in hand. This will hold it back, he said. It's not a cure yet, but it stops the decay. You need mass production, and I need more samples. But this buys you time. He handed it to her without bowing. She looked at the vial like it was her own child. Then, without warning, she removed her crown and placed it at his feet. The nobles gasped, the guards flinched. Elias just stared. You gave us time, she said. Now I give you what time could not buy, my throne and myself. Elias didn't touch the crown she placed at his feet. He didn't even look down at it. His eyes stayed on hers, calm and quiet, like nothing had changed. In that grand hall filled with shimmering walls and watching nobles, he still stood like a medic on a battlefield. The Empress remained still, her long glowing robe gently waving with the pulse of the air around her. Her people were whispering, but she didn't silence them. She didn't need to. Her voice, when she finally spoke again, cut through the tension like a blade through silk. You saved one of ours, human. You gave us time. I offer you what no being has ever been offered. Not just thanks, not just gold, but the future of my empire, my crown, my name, my hand, she said. Elias took a breath. He didn't want her throne. He didn't want titles or promises. He only wanted to stop the screaming, the fever, the burning eyes of the dying. But he also knew politics, and he knew when a statement had to be answered directly. I'm not a ruler, he said, but I accept the right to stay here. I'll keep working, and I'll take your samples. If your offer is met as trust, then I accept that too. But I'm not here to wear robes or crowns. Some nobles scoffed, others were silent. The Empress's eyes shimmered with something more than power. She stepped forward and gently lifted the crown from the floor. Then, without returning it to her head, she placed it on the throne beside her and walked down to his level. They stood face to face, the human and the Empress of the galaxy, like equals. Her voice dropped into a whisper only he could hear. Then, be my shadow, work in silence, save what we cannot. That will be your rule. Not of command, but of salvation, Elias agreed. Not with words, but with movement. He turned and walked back to the lab without looking back. The Empress returned to the throne, but she did not wear the crown again. From that day forward, she ruled with her head high but bare. The disease was mutating faster than expected. Every royal lab had failed to keep up with the changes. Elias worked day and night, barely sleeping, consuming alien medical data like fire through paper. He used technology humans were never allowed to touch before. Under his care, dozens of infected nobles survived, children, elders, even generals. He mixed Earth's biology with the alien sequences. Some combinations failed, some exploded. But slowly, the death rate began to drop. The Empress visited him daily, never interrupting. Just watching, sometimes asking questions, sometimes bringing tea, though Elias rarely drank it. They spoke little at first, but over time, her voice became part of his routine. Like the hum of his machines or the rhythm of a heartbeat, her people began to whisper of change. That their queen, who once spoke only to stars and spirits, now listened to a human. Some called it betrayal. Others called it salvation. The plague didn't care what they called it. It kept spreading on outer worlds. Elias demanded a test flight. He wanted to deliver the serum to a colony on the edge, where the sickness had just begun. The council rejected it, said it was too dangerous, said he was too valuable. The Empress said nothing during the vote. But afterward, she summoned her personal warship. I'll take you there myself, she told Elias. He didn't argue. The next morning, they left in silence, her guards in shock as the Empress boarded a ship with no escort. Just a human and a box of glowing vials. The planet below was dying. Skies blackened with ash. Fires burned beside temples. Children wailed while their mothers faded into stillness. Elias moved like he had trained for this his whole life. Injection by injection, voice calm, touch steady. The Empress knelt beside him, holding the hands of the infected as he worked. No queen had ever done this. No Empress had ever walked barefoot. On a dying world, her robes soaked with ash and tears. But she did it without hesitation. That night, as the fires dimmed and the groans turned to soft breathing, Elias looked at her across the broken ruins. She sat on a fallen stone, glowing in the moonlight, eyes fixed on the stars above. He walked over, sat beside her, and spoke for the first time in hours. "If we keep this up, your empire might hate you for it. You've already offered too much." For a stranger, she turned her face to his. "Then let them hate. I was born to protect life. If I must give up my name to do it, then I will. But you, Elias, have already done more than any emperor before me ever dared to try." The Empress's return from the plague world caused shock across the empire. News spread quickly that she had walked among the dying, side by side with a human, without armor or guards. The council members argued all night, calling it madness and dishonor, but the people whispered a different word: courage. Elias didn't care about politics. He stayed in the medical bay, updating the serum and collecting more data. His hands worked like machines. His face stayed calm. But deep inside, he was growing tired. The plague wasn't just mutating. It was fighting back. Strains of the sickness started resisting the latest version of the cure. Entire families who had survived the first wave now began to show symptoms. Again, the Empress asked for updates daily, but Elias had no good news to give. One morning, he walked into the royal chamber holding a burned-out injector and blood sample. "It's adapting faster than anything I've seen," he said. "It's not just a virus anymore, it's intelligent. Or something close to it." Her face went still. Her hand tightened around the edge of the crystal table. "Can it be stopped?" she asked. Elias didn't answer right away. Then, finally, he nodded slowly and spoke without emotion. "Yes, but it's going to cost us something big, something living. A host, a willing one. If we can teach the immune system in one strong body to fight the latest mutation, we can grow. New samples from that blood, but the host will suffer. Possibly die." There was silence in the chamber. The nobles waited for her command. Some looked toward Elias with suspicion, others with awe. He was the outsider, the human who had brought hope. But now he was asking for sacrifice. The Empress stood and looked at her court. "Who among you will offer their body to protect our people?" she asked. No one stepped forward, not one noble, not one guard. Their eyes dropped. Their feet stayed planted. Then she removed her robe. Underneath was a thin healing mesh wrapped around her glowing skin. "Then I will do it," she said. "I am not asking anyone to carry a burden I would not bear myself. I offer my body for the cure." Elias stepped forward, shaking his head. "You don't have to do this. You're the heart of the empire. If something goes wrong, everything could fall." She looked into his eyes. "Let it fall if it means saving the innocent. I will not live surrounded by dead children and call myself a queen. You said a strong host is needed. I am strong." He didn't argue again. The lab was cleared. Only Elias and the Empress remained inside, along with a silent monitoring system. Her heartbeat echoed through the room. She lay calmly on the table while he prepared the injection. "This will hurt," he warned. She smiled faintly and said, "I have carried a throne on my back for centuries. I can carry this." He injected the modified virus directly into her bloodstream. Within minutes, her body began to react. Veins lit up. Skin flushed and darkened. Her breathing quickened. Elias monitored every detail, adjusting settings, preparing antidotes in case she collapsed. Hours passed. She sweated and trembled, but she didn't cry out. Her eyes remained locked on Elias, trusting him more than any advisor she had ever known. He worked beside her, never leaving the room, even when his legs began to shake. Finally, after 16 hours, her body stabilized. Her blood readings changed. The virus had stopped spreading. Her immune system had learned to fight it. And now, Elias had exactly what he needed. He carefully drew blood and ran it through the replicator. New doses formed, glowing brighter than before. The mutation was no longer winning. For the first time in weeks, Elias allowed himself a deep breath. When she opened her eyes, she whispered, "Did it work?" Elias knelt beside her and nodded. You did it. You're the reason we can save the rest." She tried to sit up, but he gently pushed her back. "Rest, you've done more than enough. You've given more than anyone ever should." Outside the palace, the word spread fast. The Empress had offered her own life to create the cure. Entire sectors lit candles. Soldiers wept in silence. And the people, for the first time in generations, believed in something again. The Empress healed slowly, but she healed. Her strength returned day by day, even as the cure spread across the stars. Colonies that had been counting the days until death now began counting survivors. The galaxy watched as hope grew from one human's hands and one alien queen's sacrifice, but not everyone celebrated. In the dark corners of the Empire, whispers rose. Powerful families who once held sway over medicine, trade, and fear were losing their grip. Their profits had come from suffering. Now they watched it slip away with every shipment of Elias's cure. One of them, Lord Varnick of the High Flame Guild, gathered his allies in a shadowed vault beneath the twin moons. "The cure must be controlled," he hissed. "If we do not act now, we will serve under a human and a traitor queen. Our power will burn out," they agreed. They sent spies into the palace. They bribed engineers and paid scientists to create a false version of the serum. One that appeared real but failed after injection. Slowly the sabotage began. And people started dying again. Elias noticed the change first. He held a vial up to the light and frowned. The glow was off. The chemical signature was not what he created. He tested 3 more samples and confirmed it. Someone was copying the cure and poisoning it. He rushed to the Empress's chamber and placed the datapad in front of her. "We're being sabotaged," he said. "These are fake doses. They're killing people. Someone is trying to destroy everything we've built." She didn't flinch. Her eyes narrowed and her voice turned sharp. "Find them. Expose them. I'll show them what justice means when carried by a queen who bleeds for her people." Elias returned to the labs and installed new tracking codes in every real batch. He used a chemical signature that only he could read. Every shipment was now marked. Within a week, the sabotage became clear. The fake vials were traced back to the House of High Flame. The Empress gathered the council in the Grand Chamber. Varnick stood among them, dressed in gold and fire-red silk. He smiled politely, as if nothing were wrong. But when the Empress revealed the data, the chamber turned silent. "You betrayed the living," she said. "You poisoned the weak. You used death to protect your wealth. Do you deny it?" Varnick laughed softly and stepped forward. "I deny nothing. I act in defense of order. You gave your body to a human. You gave our empire's fate to alien hands. If I must kill a few thousand to stop that path, I'll sleep well." Elias took a step toward him, fists clenched. But the Empress raised her hand. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. Her voice was cold and final. "Then you'll sleep in. Chains, guards, remove him, strip his house of title. Let all who follow him know what the cost is to betray life itself." The nobles watched as Varnick was dragged from the chamber. No one protested. No one spoke. The Empress turned and looked at them one by one. "If you fear humans, then fear the kindness they bring. If you fear change, then fear what your cowardice has already cost us." After the trial, Elias sat alone in the garden courtyard. The trees around him were glowing softly, leaves moving in a rhythm only alien nature understood. He felt tired again. Not from sickness, but from the weight of what trust could break. The Empress joined him. She didn't speak right away. Just sat beside him, watching the stars above. "You saved them again," she said finally. "Even after they betrayed your cure." He shook his head. "No, you saved them. You chose justice over fear. You chose truth over comfort. That's not easy for any ruler." She leaned her head gently against his shoulder, and for a moment, they both said nothing. the silence was not empty. It was peaceful. Two lives from different worlds sitting side by side, bound by choices no one else dared to make. The cure shipments resumed, this time protected, tracked, and triple verified. The death toll dropped again. The Empire began to heal faster. But deeper shadows were moving now. For in the heart of a dying sector, something worse than sabotage had awakened. In the outer rim, far from the palace and beyond the cured colonies, a deep space mining station went silent. No distress signal was sent, no warning came through. All comms stopped within a single hour. A patrol ship passed by later and found nothing but drifting bodies. The crew had been healthy. All had taken the latest version of the cure. Elias reviewed their data and confirmed it. They were protected against the known strains. But whatever killed them wasn't one of those. It left no signs of fever. No broken cells. Just frozen stillness and black veins. He stared at the medical scans with growing dread. This isn't the same disease. It's something new. It didn't fight. The cure, it ignored it completely. As if it never existed. The Empress stood over his shoulder, her voice quiet but firm. Could it be a mutation of the plague? Elias shook his head. It feels more like a cousin. Maybe something that grew alongside it. Something waiting. They sent drones to scan nearby systems. 4 more silent stations were found, all with the same black vein victims. No resistance. No survivors. It was spreading faster than the last wave, and this time, no one knew how to stop it. Elias locked himself in the lab again. He worked through meals, skipped rest, and ignored calls. His mind raced through every possibility, comparing alien viruses with Earth-born nightmares, but nothing matched. This strain didn't behave like a virus. It behaved like a will. On the 7th day, the Empress entered the lab alone. She didn't call his name or demand answers. She simply placed a tray of food beside him and sat on the cold floor in silence. Her presence said more than any words could. Elias finally spoke after another hour of silence. I think this thing is responding to emotions. Fear makes it stronger. Panic spreads it. I don't have proof, but the pattern matches. Places that went into lockdown died faster. Places that resisted with calm lasted longer. The Empress didn't question him. Then we must give the people something more powerful than fear. If it's feeding off despair, we feed hope instead. What do you need from me? She asked. He looked at her like a man seeing light after days in darkness. I need to test a theory. If we can inject this new strain into someone without fear, without pain, and record how their body reacts, we might build something to block it. But it must be someone with absolute mental strength. She stood slowly. Then it will be me. Again, she said without hesitation. Elias stood too, frustration rising in his voice. You nearly died last time. You're still recovering. I can't keep risking you like this. Her gaze didn't waver. You are not risking me. I am choosing this. If I must carry another plague within me to protect my people, I do so freely. You need strength. I offer it. He turned away, running a hand down his tired face. You're more than just a shield, Yalari. You're everything holding this Empire together. If this goes wrong, it's not just your life. It's everyone's. She stepped closer. Then help me make sure it doesn't go wrong. I will be your subject. You will be my protector. Together we end this. They began preparations the same night. This time, no one in the palace was told. Only Elias and the Empress worked inside. The chamber, lit by soft blue lights and humming machines. She lay back, calm and ready, while Elias held the new sample in his shaking hand. He paused before injecting. This could kill you, he whispered. Or it could do something worse. I'm not afraid, she replied. Do it. The injection entered her bloodstream. At first, nothing happened. Then her body stiffened. Veins darkened slightly. Her breathing slowed, but did not stop. Unlike the first plague, this one did not burn. It whispered. It waited. Elias watched with clenched fists as the readings danced between chaos and control. Suddenly, her heart rate surged. Her mind waves spiked, but not from panic, from resistance. Her body was not afraid. It was confronting the sickness directly, holding it back not just with cells, but with will. The virus did not win. Her body absorbed it, isolated it, and weakened it. It responded to peace, not panic. Elias injected her with supportive compounds and extracted a new blood sample. He stared at the data with disbelief. She had survived again. He looked down at her, breathing calmly on the table. You just gave us another weapon. A weapon of the spirit. Asterisk. The new sample drawn from the Empress's blood was different from all the rest. It shimmered under the microscope with a strange, gentle pulse. It didn't attack. It didn't destroy. It simply held the dark strain at bay, surrounding it like calm water over flame. Elias stared at the results and whispered to himself, she didn't just survive it. She tamed it. He ran the sample through every possible filter, scanned the genetic code, and watched as the virus weakened inside every test host it touched. The lab filled with quiet excitement. His assistants, who had been forbidden from entering during the trial, now rushed to replicate the effect. The new formula was named Seraph 9, in honor of the 9th Empress of her line and the peace she carried inside. Soon, test doses were sent to the Rim colonies. Unlike the earlier cure, this version didn't fight the sickness with violence. It embraced it, held it still, and taught the body how to quiet it. Survival rates jumped within days, but something else came with it. People who received the Seraph 9 began to report dreams. Shared dreams, images of glowing cities, voices that spoke in tones not heard by ears but felt in the heart. And in every report, one figure stood watching from the light. It was the Empress. Not in body, but in shape and feeling. Her presence spread through the new immune connection. It was unintentional, but powerful. She had become part of the cure, and through it, part of her people. Elias was the first to realize what that meant. The cure worked because of her mental resistance. Her will had shaped the virus into submission. Now every dose carried an echo of that same will. She had become the spiritual firewall of an entire empire. He brought the results to her chambers with urgency in his eyes. You're not just the Empress anymore, he said. You're becoming a living symbol inside their minds. You're part of them now without ever touching them. She listened calmly. Then let me be what they need. If my peace becomes their shield, I will carry it. As long as they survive. Elias looked troubled. But what happens when you grow tired? What if you're weakened? What if this link becomes a chain? The Empress placed a hand on his shoulder. Then you must break it if needed. You must be ready to sever the bond if it threatens them. Promise me this. He didn't answer right away. Then he nodded slowly. I promise. But only if there is no other way. Until then, I'll keep protecting you while you protect them. But far beyond the stars, something else had been watching. The dark strain, though weakened, had not died. It had changed again. Deep within a dead moon's core, a dormant presence stirred. A mind older than any known species opened a single watching eye. It had once been a god to a forgotten race. Now it was only hunger. The sickness was its voice. The fear its weapon. And now something had silenced it. Something bright. Something human and alien fused together. The entity sent a fragment of itself through the black currents of space. It slipped past sensors, past guards, past codes. It moved like shadow in dream. Its goal was not to infect again but to observe. The source of the silence. It entered the edge of the Empress's mental link during one of her resting sessions. Elias noticed the pulse change on the monitor. Brain activity spiked. Light sensors turned red. She whispered in her sleep words. In a language never taught, Elias rushed to her side, grabbing a stabilizer and preparing the neural blocker. But before he injected it, she opened her eyes and said, "Wait, it's speaking. Let me listen." Her body glowed faintly. The room turned still, then she gasped and sat up straight. "It's not just sickness, it's a warning. It's not here to kill. It's trying to flee from something worse. Something that hunts even it." Elias stared at her, confused and alarmed. "You mean the plague was never the enemy?" She nodded slowly. "No, it's a wounded soldier. And what's chasing it is coming next." The revelation changed everything. The sickness that had killed billions was not the main threat. It was running from something deeper, darker, and far older. Elias couldn't understand how such a thing was possible, but the Empress had seen it in her dreams and felt it in her blood. She described it as a presence without form. It didn't burn. It didn't infect. It erased. Entire star systems that once existed were now blank spots in records. Whole species wiped clean from history. As if they had never been born, they called it the Maw, for lack of a better word. Not a creature, not a machine, just hunger. It didn't move through space like a ship. It flowed like thought, folding time around itself. It swallowed stars not by force, but by forgetting. Elias stood before the council, showing maps of missing systems. His voice was calm but sharp. "This is not legend. These coordinates once housed living worlds. Now they're nothing. Our plague was trying to escape this. It only spread because it was afraid." Some council members called it madness. Others stared at the silent voids in the maps and said nothing. The Empress stepped forward, her aura shining stronger than ever. "We do not run from shadows. If this thing is coming, we must learn how to stop it." Elias worked with her night after night. Together, they studied the remnants of the plague strain still trapped in samples. Its structure had changed since her last injection. It had become more cooperative, almost like it was trying to communicate. He isolated what looked like memory strands in the virus's molecular code. Not thoughts, but impressions, like scars left by terror. He enhanced them and showed the Empress. The images that flickered to life were horrifying. A world crumbling into black. Cities twisted out of shape, moons shattered into dust. Then came the silence, no sound, no light. Just the sensation of something ancient brushing against reality, then removing it. Elias turned away from the display, fists clenched. "We don't have weapons for this. We don't even have words for this. It's not death. It's undoing." The Empress reached for his arm, grounding him. "Then we fight it with something older than weapons. We fight it with will. The same force that held the sickness at bay. The same light inside me now shared with millions." They sent a signal through the Seraph 9 network. A call, not of panic but of unity. All who had taken the cure began to feel a pulse inside them, a connection to one another, to the Empress, to life itself. Across the galaxy, a new field began to form. Not one of metal or shields, but of shared spirit, shared defiance. The Empress led meditations in dream space. Elias translated human neural maps into quantum echoes that echoed outward. Then for the first time, the Maw responded. A dark pulse cut through the dream network. It entered minds like a whisper of cold wind. It didn't attack with rage. It simply offered a feeling, surrender. The Empress stood in the center of the dream, where the minds of her people gathered like stars. Her body glowed brighter than ever. Her voice rang through every soul connected by the cure. "We do not bow. Not to fear, not to hunger. We remember who we are." The darkness trembled. It tried again, this time showing false visions, lost lovers, fallen children, worlds on fire, but the people stood firm. The link held strong. Elias amplified her signal from the palace core, sending her light to the edge of space. The maw recoiled. Not in pain, but in confusion. It had consumed fear for eons. But here was something it could not devour. A unity stronger than its void. A bond born of pain, healed by sacrifice. Elias staggered as the power surged through the system. "It's working," he said. "You're pushing it back. Not with weapons. With hope." The Empress opened her eyes in the waking world. Her breath was steady. Her heart was calm. "Then we keep going. Until every corner of this galaxy is filled with light it cannot swallow." The dream network pulsed like a living star. Across hundreds of systems, those who carried the Seraph 9 cure felt the same heartbeat. It was not fear, it was unity. It was the strength of life holding against the hunger of nothing. Elias monitored every signal in the palace core. The energy readings weren't just biological. They were something else entirely. Emotional resonance, shared consciousness. His scanners were measuring faith, willpower, and memory as if they were matter. The Empress sat cross-legged in the dream chamber, her body glowing softly. She breathed in harmony with the entire empire. Her mind floated above the darkness, untouched by the Maw's illusions. She had become the center of the storm. The Maw tried one final time to break through. It didn't roar. It didn't scream. It whispered gentle offers. Eternal rest, silence, release from struggle. It promised peace in exchange for surrender. But no one answered it. The Empress lifted her hand within the dreamscape. All across the galaxy, infected survivors saw the same vision. A hand of light reaching through shadow. A voice saying not in command, but in invitation, "Stand with me." Then came the great pulse. It spread through the mind link like a wave. Through water. Elias amplified it with every tool earth science could provide. The dream became a song. The memory of every lost life became a flame. Every act of kindness lit the path. The Maw collapsed inward, not from destruction, but from starvation. It couldn't feed on unity. It couldn't digest love. The thing that had devoured galaxies now folded into itself like a forgotten story. When the dream broke, Elias found himself on his knees beside the Empress. Her body was still, glowing with warmth but unmoving. Her breath was shallow, her eyes closed. Her link had held the light, but the cost had been everything she had left. He touched her hand and whispered, "Yllari, come back, please." Her lips moved faintly. "Are they safe?" Elias nodded. "Yes, the Maw is gone. They're alive. Because of you." She smiled, and for a moment, it felt like all the stars were closer. Then her body went quiet. Her light faded. The Empress of Life passed without pain, wrapped in the peace she had given to millions. The galaxy mourned her like no leader before. Planets dimmed their lights for a full cycle. Cities carved her image into stone. But her greatest monument was not in walls or statues. It lived inside the people. In their dreams. In their unity. Elias stood before the Galactic Council days later. His voice was clear. She offered her throne and herself not for power, but for healing. She did not die as a queen. She lived as a protector, a guide. And now it is our turn to carry that light forward. The council voted to rename the throne world after her. Yllari Prime. No one contested it. Even those who once opposed her bowed their heads in silence. Her story had ended, but her influence had only begun. Elias returned to the lab she had once walked through in silence. He didn't reopen it. He preserved it, exactly as it was. A single room where hope had been born from sacrifice. The doorway was marked with one line, "Here, love defeated fear." He spent his final years teaching, not healing. He told her story to anyone who would listen. He traveled to remote colonies and planted trees in her name. Wherever a cure reached, he ensured her voice was part of it. And when his own time came, He asked for no grave, only that his ashes be scattered across the stars, so that, like her, he could be part of something bigger, part of the light that no darkness could ever consume. The stars kept shining. The unity held, and the galaxy moved forward not in fear, but in the quiet strength of those who remembered the Empress who offered her throne and herself.